Alrighty, just about over this cold. Good news. Looks like I'm starting a new job. Not at the radiator joint that I expected, but at the vineyard joint owned by the Chinese guy. And printing season has started, and he's told his supervisor that bring me on. And so yeah, it's not glorious pay, but when it's 38 hours a week, you know, full time, there's no 35-hour week full time like we have in Europe. Here it's 38 or 40, and it's either 38 or 40 that I'll be working, and a little bit less pay than what I'm getting at the chicken joint, but the work is not as rushed, and it's actually a full week, not 15 hours, 12 hours or something like that. So yeah, in case you haven't noticed, I've been not too badly going financially. I've been really quite good, even though most weeks the welfare office will only give me about $30 a week. And I suppose this is proof of the pudding that, you know, by me buying, you know, certain things like this one here and that one there and other bits and pieces and stuff, it's proof of the pudding that you can live exceedingly cheap off-grid and have quite a lot of disposable income. And part of that, I must admit, is the fact that I don't have a family to support as well, because I'm just looking after me. But, you know, to get 12 or 15 hours a week and then still be going out buying toys like that, and the dole office is only giving you $30 a week, the welfare office is only giving you $30 a week, like, you know, it's proof that you can live so cheaply off-grid. I'm going to show you the wood hot water system because we have come quite a way with it, and it looks bloody enormous. But also I'm intending to make up what will probably look like one of these things you've seen out of those Only in Russia compilations, electric hot water system. And when I go into the welfare office this Friday, I'm going to go buy a few other bits and pieces, including stuff for the wood hot water system and an electric hot water system, which is going to be a real hillbilly hack looking thing, but it'll be a successful electric hot water system. And yeah, I'm going to put one of those together, and yes, it'll look pretty rough on it, but yeah, it won't cost very much at all to do. I won't go into too much detail. You see that when it's done. But the only thing that may be a bit scratchy that you need will be, there's great stuff in the US. It's actually polyurethane expansion foam. We've got heaps of brands of it here and we can get it quite cheap. And the other thing that might be a little bit hard to get is your high temperature silicon, which will be need to be used in it. Failing that, there's this stuff that they call neutral cure, and you'll see it's made for movements and it can take plus or minus 15% movement. Often that handles 150 degrees Celsius. So you could get away with using that or get away with using the you know, high temperature silicon quite easily. But anyway, I'll show you that project another time. Because I've been tearing these cars apart, I got one moved the other day finally, and I've been ripping into the Nissan, pulling parts out of it. I'll show you a quite long video showing how to get all the good copper and brass parts out, because like scrap metal isn't worth much, scrap steel. Scrap copper is astronomically priced. And I'll tell you all the different brass and copper bits that you may or may not have in a car, and the different ages of, you know, the vehicles where you're likely to find it. The older the vehicles are, the more likely they've got copper and brass in them. But I'll take you through that and also show you all the bits you want to get for off-grid usage, such as the fuses. There's relays in a lot of these cars that most people may not even be aware of. There's a quick and dirty method I have for salvaging most of the copper wiring out of cars that is pretty rough and pretty quick, but, you know, in the purpose of, you know, making a quick dollar, how to get this copper wiring out, even the stuff behind your dashboard, and some of the other little places where you'll find electric motors that you can either make use of, including things like the little washer pump, which come in handy for watering pot plants when you're not at home. You can put them on a timer and get it to automatically water your indoor plants. And also just other random knick-knock-knacks that you might need for, you know, find useful for off-grid purposes. So anyways, without further ado, let's have a little look at hot water system here. Okay, as you can tell, she's bloody big. Now we realised it might be a bit top heavy, so the feet are gone on an angle to create a larger sort of a base to assist it not being too heavy. A few minutes ago we were just whacking these bolts and he's done a brilliant job on this. Curved it right down and all this. This is where I'm going to put the muffler putty. Got a bit of diesel there I was using as I was drilling through, so I'm going to have to remove that with acetone or degreaser, but I've got acetone, which is a real savage degreaser. That's where we load our fuel in. This is laying on its side, obviously. There's our little bottom. We're going to use a bit more of this 3mm strapping here to create bits where you see the chalk marks there, to take the ashtray. Now there's going to be a couple of bolts or whatever coming out from here that stick out, well, about 5 inches actually, and then there's going to be a big loop of sheet metal around this, and basically there's going to be foam insulation in between this and you know, the rest of the tank. I was sort of going to put it up higher. Obviously, like the fire will be up to here, but I want that bit of extra gap so it doesn't overheat any of the foam insulation or whatever, because this is going to get exceedingly hot. But once it gets up to here, it may, because it's further away from the flame, it you know, won't be quite as dramatically hot, and therefore it may also get heat loss transferring through this steel, so we want to hold that heat in to keep the water hot. And yeah, we got all these are your top ones, but they're only just barely stuck in. That's your 7 pipes there. The bottom ones were welded very heavily. It still turned out there was a slight bit of a leak. This stupid bit where the fittings were, and had to be redone altogether. But it's now all watertight, and yeah, we'll move ahead. But yeah. So I'm going a bit mad on the hot water systems, I understand that. But you may ask why don't I use my backup shower that I have. I've actually put the old, you might have seen the old 6-volt batteries, I've put them as a bit of a bank on it. Fact of the matter is that I've got to bucket water individually out to that. It's going to be in a freezing cold room, there's no insulation on it, it's not very well designed, and we've actually been getting enough warm days here that it's warm enough to use in my existing hot water system, usually every second day or whatever, and I can do, and still going to the gym on occasion to have a shower there as well. But you know, another week or two and all this should be moving quickly in the right direction, and then we might be using this, but it'll be hilarious using this thing. I'm going to fire this up and it'll burn all the paint off this. That's the whole idea. Oh, excuse I. When I go in on Friday to the welfare office and that, one of the things I'm going to do is get it's basically a wire brush that mounts into an angle grinder. And so when this has its initial firing, all the paint will turn black basically, and then you just sort of, go over it with this wire brush and the angle grinder and clean it all off. Respray it in Potbelly Black, and if any of this turns to crap, I'll do the same thing, and I'll probably do all around these joints and everything as well. Respray that in Potbelly Black, and then after that we'll go and put the insulation up the top and whatnot. But yeah, we're all sort of coming together. Looks like a blasted rocket. Man on his big feet. All it needs is a few like big fins on the side and then some stupid name painted on it. Rocket Man. The other one I should mention for the hot water system that I've got to sort out sometime is Cathodic Protection. I've learnt a bit recently about Cathodic Protection. I've got to grab a sacrificial anode or cathode or whatever it is again from one of these places that sells spare parts for these sort of things, and some sort of a nut that will thread onto it reasonably neatly to stop it from rusting out so much inside. That's one of the things I've got to do. Stupidly enough, I was supposed to learn all this sort of stuff when I'd done my apprenticeship, but let's face it, 19 months I was there for. I got 1 week at trade school with a bunch of house painters, and I was supposed to be doing protective coatings and corrosion control. And of course, long story short, I was just there as cheap labour to load the trucks. But that was one of the things I was going to learn, but I've since learnt it through YouTube. And basically you put out an aluminium or magnesium rod, preferably magnesium, and that will be eaten away instead of the steel inside the hot water system tank. And in the process of all that, it has to have electrical continuity. In other words, I've got to be able to whack on a multimeter or a continuity meter, basically continuity tester, onto the anode or whatever, and onto the side of the hot water system tank, and if electricity flows through, then you're fine. And there's some sort of a negative current, I believe, that means that the magnesium will be eaten away instead of the steel, and therefore the tank will last significantly longer. And inside these tanks, they look very clean and more or less sandblasted, because you've got to remember the propane, or LPG as it is technically, it's propane and butane, is basically an oil product, and they never put coatings on the inside of them, which I know having cut some open. And as soon as you start doing leak tests, things start going rusty, and they'll go horrendously rusty if I start using it as a normal hot water system. So I've got to get all that sorted out prior to using it on a regular basis, if I do go ahead and use it on a regular basis. But yeah, and also apparently you're better to actually leave it full all year round, not empty it out for the summer, but actually just to leave it full continuously. So yeah,